every 3 days across our country, a woman is killed at the hands of a man, every 3 days. And that's a sobering fact. My view that I've been making clear for a number of years now, and I've been criticised for this, is I think there are systemic cultural issues in the police service.
What are you doing about that to prevent that happening going forward? Do you think London's safe?
Well, I asked that question by your answer. If you don't feel it's safe, it's not safe, right? And so...
Do you feel it's safe?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because my comparator isn't, with respect, Bali or Dubai. My comparator is New York, Chicago, those cities, because we're a global city, Stephen. We're not Cheshire, right? And so, but if it's not safe for you, it's not safe for me. I speak to too many women and girls. They say it's not safe. I speak to too many women in particular who say they're imposing a curfew on themselves not to go out at night time because they don't feel safe. In that case, it's not safe. I speak to too many, people who are worried about their safety. And, perception is important here because it's fear of crime that you're talking about because of your experience, right? And you'll speak to your friends and not unreasonably that they'll be apprehensive and scared. So it's a problem for me and we've got to address it.
Women and girls, there's been a lot of talk recently about instances of police officers who have attacked, raped women and girls on the streets of London. What are you doing about that to prevent that happening going forward?
So in the last few years, there's been, at last, publicity given to the fact that every 3 days across our country, a woman is killed at the hands of a man, every 3 days. And that's a sobering fact. Recently, we've seen not just the tragic murders of Sarah Everard, Zara Alina, Biba and Nicole, and many others, Sabina Nessa. But also we've seen people who we entrust to keep us safe, police officers, the people we go to when we're the victims of crime, being involved in the most serious crimes possible. Sarah Everard was abducted by a man using his warrant card, raped and killed by a serving police officer. We had David Carrick, somebody who'd been a police officer for almost 20 years. We discovered throughout most of his 20 years had been a prolific sexual offender, using the fact he's a police officer to commit some of those crimes. But also, it appears there were opportunities for the police during the vetting process to find out this guy was a criminal and not just stop him being a police officer, but take action against him. My view that I've been making clear for a number of years now, and I've been criticised for this, is I think there are systemic cultural issues in the police service. One of the reasons why I ultimately lost confidence in the previous commissioner was my lack of belief in her ability to understand this as an issue, have a plan to address this, have a plan to win back the trust and confidence of Londoners. And so we've got to make sure we have a reforming commissioner doing this job. Unless the guy at the top or the woman at the top understands the problem, how are you going to fix it? I think the new commissioner and his deputy understand there's a problem and they've got a plan to fix it. They're taking on board the recommendations from an outsider. You can't mark your own homework. You need somebody else to look into things, tell you how bad things are, make recommendations and follow them through. So we've got an outsider, Louise Casey, to look into what's going on in the Met Police Service. She's published an interim report. The Commissioner's accepted all the findings. She will now publish her final report later on this year. We need to change the rules around how police officers are employed. So if a member of your staff had a nickname, the bastard, that would raise questions for you, right? Why is this guy's nickname amongst his colleagues, the bastard? Or other nicknames that police officers involved in this stuff have had. No action taken against them because it's very difficult for the Commissioner and others to get rid of dodgy officers. The regulations make it difficult. But we're not asking necessarily in all cases for a criminal prosecution. We're asking for those officers to be at least sacked. So we're lobbying the government to change the regulations to make it easier for the Commissioner to get rid of dodgy officers. We've set up a hotline for people can ring in and police officers can ring in about dodgy behaviour of other officers. From City Hall, without government support, from City Hall, we're investing more money in ramping up the vetting processes, right? This guy should have been spotted a mile away. I've also asked the Commissioner, it was his idea to be fair, to go back 10 years and look at every single time a police officer has had a complaint made against them of this nature, to see if any other opportunities missed with other officers, We've also got a new unit which we're invested in, an anti-abuse and corruption unit. But my view is this, by the way. In London, we've shone a spotlight on this, but there are other police forces around the country where, I'm sure there are other issues where that spotlight's not been shone yet. And so it's really important for us to recognise these are systemic cultural issues across our country that demand addressing.
I was reading about the story of, I think it's Hars Ratwali, the story of an 18-year-old guy who was in Twickenham, was approached by a 16-year-old kid, ended up being stabbed to death with an 8-inch knife because he got into an argument with this person. And when that 16-year-old that stabbed him to death was asked, he said he stabbed him because people in his life had been victims of knife crime, and he thought, he was scared that Hazrat would have a knife himself. That's the infection you're talking about.
Yeah, so basically what happens is some young people that I speak to will think the way to be safe is to carry a knife because they suspect you might be carrying a knife, right? And so we've got to get the message across that leaving it home with a knife doesn't make you more safe, it makes you less safe. So if you go to a primary school, now, not a secondary school, a primary school, across the country, by the way, and you have a classroom of 30 people, and you say, how many of you know somebody carrying the knife? You'll be shocked at the number of hands that go up in a primary school, right? Secondary school is even higher. And so there is this belief amongst young people that carrying the knife makes you more safe, not less safe. And by the way, I went to a tough secondary school, lots of fights. Nobody even thought about taking a knife to school, right, or getting involved with knives at all. And, so we've got to deal with that issue at source to make sure young people understand the dangers. So we're going into school, speaking to young people with credibility. You've got to have somebody who's the message carrier needs to be somebody who kids respect and will listen to, right? And so getting people to go into schools to explain the dangers. Sometimes it's a bereaved mum. A bereaved mum can be really effective in explaining the story about her son, tends to be boys, about her son and the dangers of carrying the knife. So we've got to stop it at source. We've also got to make sure, frankly speaking, that there's intelligence-led stop and search. Because if you're carrying the knife, I want you to be stopped and searched. And if you've got a knife, taken off you. And we've made progress in taking knives off people, which is saving lives. Weapon sweeps is really important. But also, if you're caught carrying the knife, there's got to be serious sentences. There's got to be a consequence if you're carrying that knife. But, and that's why we've got to have these conversations. That's why it's the public health approach. And it is leading to, huge reductions. Over the last year, we've had a 55% reduction in teenage homicides. Not enough. One is one too many. Fewer homicides last year than when I first became mayor. Not enough, but we're making progress because the investment is now starting to pay dividends in relation to youth clubs, youth work, going into schools, more police officers.
There was a big drop in knife crime, wasn't there? Was it 2020, I'm going to say?
So
was that the pandemic?
So the pandemic, we saw a reduction, a number of reasons, obviously, for 3 months people, but there was a lockdown and stuff. But that progress we've carried on, but it started going on before the pandemic. We first started investing in, it's called the Young Londoners Fund, in about 2018-19, but it takes some time to get youth workers back employed, youth centres back open, and also young people starting to have these points landed on them. There's not a light bulb moment. It's got to take time, spend time with them. And that's why mentors are so important. The reason I made the point at the beginning, Stephen, about you as a role model is, I'm a firm believer in you can't beat it if you can't see it, right? I was lucky that I saw at home my mum working really hard, my dad working really hard, my big brother's working really hard. I had role models. A lot of young people haven't got that role model at home. The youth worker is that role model. A youth worker is an amazing asset to a young person if you've not got the role model at home in relation to a big brother, a friend, somebody you can ring up, somebody give you careers advice. A lot of young people don't know how to put up a tie, right? Don't know how to shave, can't go for a job interview. Those soft skills we're teaching young people now. You may think, why are you teaching young people those soft skills? Because they need those soft skills, right?
Well, knife crime's up since last year, though, isn't it?
No, it's gone down. So basically, knife crime's gone down since I became mayor. Homicide's gone down.
Since last year?
No, robbery's gone up a bit. Robbery's gone up a bit for a number of reasons. We're dealing with,
That's me.
Yeah. A robbery's when you're,
Oh, out and about, okay.
Robbery is burglary with violence.
Right. If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favour. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.